Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King, and today I'm going to be giving you part 32 of What If Kaguya Was Naruto's Mother. Remember to get this one to 100 likes as usual, share this to all of your friends on your social media platform. And also stay in tune because after this I'm going to be posting a brand new episode of What If Naruto Was Neglected by Everyone. And after that, I'm going to be posting another episode of What If Naruto Returned Different from his training trip. So stay in tune for that as well, guys. And also, over on Anime King 2, I'm going to be posting a brand new episode of What If the 10 Tails was sealed inside of Naruto. So stay in tune for that and I hope you guys enjoy. And I'm going to be posting What If Izuna Uchiha was Naruto's ancestor as well, guys. And yeah, if you're new, remember to go ahead and click that red subscribe button and join both Anime King and Anime King 2 and become a part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and your support, guys. And yeah, without further ado, let's begin this new episode. Begin the intro.
I think the girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. I think the girls with their
So, the last time we left off, Naruto showed Nagato that he was no match for him, as Nagato tried to pull out Naruto's soul, but Naruto turned and grabbed him and took him out of his walker, as Naruto ripped out both of his eyes, as Nagato was in tremendous pain, but Naruto then placed his hand over his head, as a green light enveloped Nagato's head and went into his eye socket. He then could see, with his purple eyes, no longer the Rinnegan, just normal purple eyes. As Naruto told him that was his eyes before, someone transplanted the Rinnegan into his. As Naruto squashed the Rinnegan, destroying them. As Naruto then quickly went into his mind using Swift Release, taking out the information. After Naruto read all the information, Naruto got pissed, as Naruto started to choke him, as Konan seeing what was happening thought that he was going to kill him. But instead, Naruto ripped away the ability for him to learn and do ninjutsu anymore, as he tossed him aside as Nagato passed out cold, as Konan asked him what he just did. As Naruto then went over and hugged Konan. That hug made her start to remember things, as she remembered that she was taken by a ninja from the rain. Seeing that she was wearing such valuable clothes, he thought that he could get something for her. As Naruto realized the stupid mistake he did, he was spreading out his senses to try and find a ninja run off. He didn't search for his little daughter who was right there. As Naruto saw a look on her face, so he decided to explain. He told her about his two sons that he had before. The reason why he didn't tell their mom or them why the powers he possessed. He didn't want them to be arrogant, but Konan didn't like that excuse. As she got up in anger, she quickly built a paper bird which she put Nagato on, as she then got on it. As Naruto then gave her a box marking Konan things. As Naruto told her happy birthday, seeing that she was an orphan, she never knew where her real birthday was on, as she headed off after Naruto told her that he was going to visit her. Some time passed and Naruto arrived back at the village, as Minato came to his house immediately and told him that Koshi was taken. As Naruto got a sample of Koshi blood from Minato, as he used the blood like a magnet, as it was pulled to the real Koshi. As Naruto went off to find Koshi, he found him in the forest, as Orochimaru was taking him away. As Naruto couldn't believe it, it was Orochimaru. As Naruto used his mind Swift Release to realize what Orochimaru did, he used a forbidden jutsu called the Edo Tensei. He then put his soul in another body to come back to life. As Naruto decided to stop him from ever coming back to life, as he thrust his arm forward, pushing right into Orochimaru. As Orochimaru then felt something pull out of him, as his body went limp. As Naruto held Orochimaru's soul in his hand, as he used Soul Release. So yeah guys, that was basically the last point we left off. You guys can switch across the plates and check it out for yourself. So let's start this new episode. Naruto was holding a blue ball in his hand, as it was Orochimaru's soul. The soul tried to escape his grip, like it knew what was going to happen, but Naruto simply clamped down on it tighter. If Naruto should release it now, Orochimaru would have died, and then be resurrected by one of the many special clones that he had sent around the land, and that was unacceptable. Instead, Naruto would inflict the worst possible punishment he would pass on someone. The Pure Lands was a place where someone ended up after death, where worldly concern and negative emotions and feelings, none of that was there. It was where your soul went for peace after the body was no more. But it was not just a place where soul went to relax. It was where the soul was cleansed and cleared of all their memory to return to the wheel of life, to be reincarnated on the mortal plane as a clean slate. As to deny someone from going to the Pure Lands, that was the worst punishment. This was one of the reasons why Naruto did not kill Nagato, because he would have gone to a place he didn't deserve to go. He would let the leader of the Akatsuki stir in the realm of the living, making him know that he almost condemned the world to pain and suffering on a tremendous scale, the exact opposite of what he wanted to do. The knowledge that he had been wrong, that a god that he called himself was wrong, would be a far more punishment than death. It would shatter his psyche and force him to admit that he wasn't a god, or either drive him insane. For people like Orochimaru though, Naruto looked down at his soul as he then clenched his hand, as Naruto squeezed it, crushing the soul. There was no sound to signify the death of Orochimaru, no final scream, nothing. The small ball of blue light was simply vanished like a tiny flame. Naruto just stood there, taking in the fact that Orochimaru will no longer and never have a presence in the elemental nations again. Despite the swift way he acted, Naruto loaded, completely destroying someone's soul. It was a last resort, but Orochimaru had proven that he would never stop coming after his family. And he held a form of resurrection so he could come back and come back and come back again. As Naruto then turned and went over to Koji, unconscious form. On his way back to Konoha, Naruto brought Koji to his parents' house as he tucked him into bed. As he checked him to make sure that Orochimaru didn't put anything harmful in the boy, just as a last resort. But it wasn't. Koji was just unconscious. As Naruto decided that he would let Minato know that his son has been returned before he started packing again. He would let Minato tell Kushina that Koji had returned. That is if he even told her that Koji was kidnapped in the first place. As Naruto saw that she hadn't appeared when Minato told him that Koji was missing, she would have been there as well. Shaking that out of his mind, Naruto left the house in swift release. As Naruto arrived at the council chamber, while he would normally go to his son's tower, he felt his son chakra in here along with a dozen others. Naruto's sudden appearance startled the guards as all of them pulled kunais, their anvus and their swords. As they then moved it and they had an irritated look on their face, as Naruto just smirked to himself. As Naruto knocked on the door, while the shinobis kept glancing at him. As one side of the double door opened, it was an anvu. As the anvu then stepped aside a minute later. As Naruto stepped inside, as all eyes were on him, the civilians, and the shinobi council, but Naruto's gaze was only on his son. As Naruto felt pure nervousness in the room, and it was on the shinobi side. Naruto then noticed Minato's face. He was happy to see him, knowing that he must have brought Koji back. He was also tense. "Namikaze-san," said Shikaku, "why have you interrupted this council meeting?" "I have merely come to inform my son that Koji is resting at home. Is there anything wrong with that?" Naruto said, as Minato slumped down after hearing that, as Naruto could see some of the tense removed from him, but he was still a bit tense. "Of course not," said Shikaku, but interrupting a meeting for a few words. "That could have waited," he said. "I see," said Naruto with annoyance in his tone. "I will leave you all to your meeting then." With that, Naruto turned to leave, but he was stopped by Shikaku. "Actually, Namikaze-san, if you could remain here, the council has a few questions for you." As Naruto turned towards Shikaku with an annoyed look on his face, but someone else spoke in a far, aggressive tone. We've received several reports of your action during the Konoha recent invasion, the implications of which are disturbing. If you could shed some light on them, that would be helpful. As Naruto's eyes locked on the woman, that was that woman that looked like a dog, where he said her children would be lying in a ditch. I would like to return to my grandchild, Naruto said. He has had a tired day, and I would like to make sure that it isn't worse than it already has been. We have all had a tired day, the woman said. Could you spare us a moment of your precious time and answer a few questions? Naruto narrowed his eyes at the woman. He had enough. He didn't have to stand here and deal with her. No, Naruto said, as he turned around to try to walk out of the room, but the envoys blocked the door. As Naruto turned and looked at his son, as Minato had a tired look on his face from the argument between him and the Inuzaka earlier, he simply just waved his hand as the envoy stepped aside. Hokage-sama, said Shikaku, his voice calm, but Naruto saw the anger in his eye. You cannot just dismiss the investigation and the reports that we receive, especially after, if what they imply is true. You cannot allow your personal relationship with the subject affect your judgment. Minato turned as he looked at Nara, as he was silent for a few seconds. As Minato spoke, everyone except for Jonin, Nara, and Aberame out, he said. Envoys, please, escort the counselors out the door. Captain Nico, to me, said Minato. A person with a cat mask appeared beside Minato as the others were moved to the door. During this time, Naruto just stood there as he was looking at his son. As Naruto then turned towards Shikaku, you ever challenge me like that again, Jonin, Nara, and I will have you as an academy teacher for the next 5 years. After that, I will make you try to climb back to your rank from a genin just to have Jonin, Aberame, replace you. Is that understood? Minato said in a stern tone, as the man straightened up in his chair. Yes, Hokage-sama, he said. If you have a problem, you come see me in private. Not here, said Minato. Not in front of these people, he said as he pointed at the door. That was something I would have expected from a child. Yes, Hokage-sama, said Shikaku, as Minato then turned to the Aberame. Jonin, Aberame, judging by the looks I see you and the others saying, Namikaze-san, during the council meeting, you seem to have some idea about these reports. You, Akamichi, and Yamanaka. Tell me why I should allow this investigation when it isn't even important to talk to Hokage about first, said Minato. As Shikaku straightened up at that, did he find out about what they were trying to do? As Naruto had to suppress a small grin that was going to break out, it was rare when Minato had to use his tongue like a weapon, just like Naruto would. As the Aberame spoke, after a short period, 2 or 3 days perhaps, the information in the report will be widespread, and when no news of an investigation is occurred, the public will demand one. Unfortunately, Hokage-sama, that is something not even you can ignore. Unless you desire a widespread of shinobi and civilian alike attempting to find out the truth for themselves. And with that, he went silent, leaving Minato to think about what he just told him. As Minato went silent for a good 10 seconds, he then turned back to the 2 Jonins. Jonin, Nara, said Minato, summarized the report, as Shikaku nodded. After Namikaze started his pursuit after the Akatsuki, a few Chunins follow. They arrived in time to see Namikaze being thrown into Hokage's monument by a second member after he was distracted with a young lady. After the female had left, the man stood there, and then suddenly the wall exploded, and a person wearing similar clothes to Namikaze emerged and attacked the Akatsuki member with deadly attacks. After a few seconds, the Chunin immediately thought that the person was the elemental sage because of his white hair and the incredible power he possessed. But after noticing his clothing, they came to the conclusion that the elemental sage has been living under the disguise as your father all this time. The Chunins then observed the rest of the fight, but then came back to the shelter when he became more destructive, said Shikaku, as he then went silent. Naruto frowned at the idea that people was observing his fight with Nagato and he wasn't aware of it. He may have been invested in the battle, but there was no reason to disregard his surroundings, especially to the extent where a group of Chunins could be nearby. and see his clothing. Do you believe this conclusion, Shikaku? Asked Minato. As Shikaku looked over at Naruto. Yes, Hokage-sama, he said. And you, Shibi? Asked Minato as he looked at the Aburame clan head. I believe the theory that Namikaze-san is an elemental sage is, at very least, does have some fact within it. It explains why he came to our aid years ago in the Kyuubi attack, despite his lack of appearance years prior. It will also explain why you kept breaking procedure when need to, when he should have been debriefed, you personally, inquire Hokage-sama. This theory would explain a lot of those. You edited the truth so it will not expose Namikaze's true identity. As Naruto just looked at all of them, he knew what this would be. A near lifetime of harassment for Minato and his family from the hands of the civilians who want to know if his father was a true elemental sage, as it was his fault for not looking at his surroundings. But thankfully Naruto has an easy escape for this situation. It's okay, Minato, said Naruto. As everyone turned to him, tell them the truth, Naruto said. Dad, are you sure? Minato asked. It's fine, Minato. It won't matter soon enough anyway, Naruto said. And why is that? Minato asked. Because I am leaving, said Naruto. As the two clan heads' eyes went wide, along with Minato a frown on his face and the envoys in the room, as Shikaku and Aburame looked like they were about to stand up to protest him from leaving. Unless there is something in Konoha's laws preventing a civilian from leaving, Naruto questioned. Because then we would have a problem, wouldn't we? Naruto said. Knowing who he was now, his threats are even more intimidating. I think that you can leave now, Dad, said Minato, as he then turned to look towards the two remaining clan heads. Unless either of you believe otherwise, he said, as neither of them said a word. As Naruto then turned as he walked away. An hour later, Minato arrived at the house as he quickly went to check on Koji, as he released a huge sigh. Thanks, Dad, said Minato. You don't thank a family member who saved another, said Naruto. Part of being in a family is the expectation that a family member will help you no matter what. Minato merely nodded numbly. So, are you truly leaving? He asked. Yes, Naruto said. At least wait for Koji to wake up before you leave, Minato asked, knowing that it would be useless to try and convince his father to do otherwise. After, it was a shock when he just heard it, but after thinking it over, he realized after what happened recently, he should have expected this. Naruto would have wanted to see how Konan was, and what she did in the past, and how she would be in the future. Kushina will want another meal together before you leave as well. I will also like that as well, said Minato. And you will, Minato, said Naruto. I won't walk out the gates until I have a last meal with the three of you. In the meantime, I will leave you alone with Koji. As Naruto exited Minato's home, as he went back to his, as the sun was settling over the horizon, as Naruto was going to finish packing, so he could have a calm breakfast tomorrow with Koji, Kushina and Minato, and then he could leave. Despite, however, Naruto still know what Zetsu meant towards his daughter. She now knowing the true goal of the Akatsuki, there is no doubt she will try to take down the plant being by herself. It was a noble goal, wanting to purge what infected the Akatsuki from the inside, but Naruto wished to take care of Zetsu before he knew that they're onto them. As he walked into the front door, he found out that he wasn't alone immediately, as he noticed several of the knickknacks that was on his bookshelf was moved around. As Naruto shook his head, he already knew who it was. Uncle, he said. What are you doing in my house? A moment of silence before Naruto heard a curse, as Uncle stood up from behind his chair. How did you know I was here? She said. I was practically invisible, as she had a huge frown on her face. You assumed that I saw you? Naruto said, as he shook his head. Now what are you doing in my house? As he then looked over at his window and saw the latch broken. You broke my window? He said. Uncle had never broken into his house before. She would walk in unannounced. Other times she would just knock on the window a number of times for him to come out. But Uncle asked a question of her own. How come you didn't tell me that you were the elemental sage? She said. As a small frown came on his face, he never knew that the news would spread so quickly. I never realized it was something I was supposed to share, uncle, he said. I thought we were close. I thought that you would trust me with something like that, Naruto, she said. As Naruto sighed as he heard the hurt in her voice. Uncle, if I had my way, no one would know. The ability to slaughter hundreds of thousands of people with family and loved ones isn't something that I want to advertise. But you're a hero in Konoha, she said. It is taught in the academy that if it wasn't for you, the second Hokage wouldn't survive the conclusion in the first Shinobi War. Shinobis strive to reach the level of power and skills that you have. As Naruto scoffed at that, if Shinobi ever reached the amount of power that he had, it would certainly be the end of the world. But look, uncle said, I just want to know why you didn't tell me about this. I told you everything. Why didn't you do the same with me? Naruto took a breath as he rubbed his forehead. He wouldn't apologize, he didn't do anything wrong, keeping his status as the elemental sage. Nevertheless, uncle would react badly if she was truly upset about this. As I said before, uncle, it isn't something that I wish to be well known, even by those I trust. It is not something I'm proud of. I didn't mean to imply that I didn't trust you by not telling you, uncle. I just want little people to know as possible. As he watched, as her arms dropped to her side. What are you going to do then, uncle said. Pretty much everyone in Konoha now know that you have more power in your pinky than they have in their entire body. I've been waiting here for at least an hour or two, uncle said. It won't be too long before people start to line up at the gate of the Namikaze compound just to see you. It won't be a problem, said Naruto. I'll be leaving tomorrow and wants Minato to tell them that they'll eventually get back to their life and then forget. Uncle frowned as she took a few steps closer to him. But you just got back, and you really think that the people would forget that the most powerful person in the elemental nations they have ever seen has returned to their village after a few weeks? You would be hounded the moment you come back, uncle said. As Naruto sighed, I won't be coming back to the village for some time, uncle. It would be at least a year or two before you return. As uncle's face turned blank, as she then clenched her fists. What about your grandson, or Hokage-sama? She said in an angry tone. Are you just going to leave them? She said. My son is perfectly capable of looking after himself, along with Koji. And while it would be heartbreaking not to see them, or Kushina, for such a long period, but it would be better not to put them through the massive. That would hound me, because of the people I have killed, Naruto said. What about me? Uncle said. What will happen to me when you leave, Naruto? She said, as her tone was very soft. You're bold, you're strong, you're an amazing woman, uncle, he said truthfully. I have watched you grow into an incredible person who is unafraid to speak her mind and unbending to outside influences, Naruto said. Uncle snored. I have yet to meet someone who does, she said. As Naruto chuckled a bit. You don't need me to hold your hand any longer. You can make your own choices without my oversight. You just need for me to check in occasionally, he said. As uncle smirked slightly. As it then dropped. So nothing will convince you to stay? As Naruto shook his head no. As he then saw her clench her fist. As she stepped forward. As Naruto stood there waiting to see what she was going to do. To his surprise, she wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him. As it was several seconds of confusion for Naruto, but for her it was 7 seconds of bliss. As Naruto held onto her hand and removed it from around his neck, as he looked into her eyes, as she quickly lowered her head and spoke. So I didn't convince you to stay? Was it because I'm too young? She said. Uncle, he said, make sure to speak as soft as possible, as he saw how fragile she was now. In another time, maybe under different circumstances, I could have returned your feelings, but I just don't feel that kind of attraction towards you. So you just grown to see me like a sister or daughter then, Uncle said. Well then, I guess that's what I get for wishful thinking, she said. As she walked forward again, but this time she hugged him. As she rested her head on his shoulder, as Naruto hugged her back. She then breathed the hug as she looked down and wiped her eyes, as she wouldn't show that she was crying. I'll see you later, Naruto, she said. as Naruto could heard the hurt in her voice as she passed him and left. The next day, Kushina was seated beside her son, upset and angry that she wasn't told immediately that he was kidnapped and any aftermath after Orochimaru kidnapped him. Minato had several papers in front of him about the damage of Konoha that it has taken, as ever so and often he would eat some of his breakfast or start a conversation and looking away from the papers. As Koji, after having a long discussion with both of his parents the night before, was digging into his food, only to stop and ask his grandfather how long will he be gone. Still, Naruto enjoyed the time with them, so when it was time to leave, he left with a smile on his face. On a completely unreadable note, the large scroll that Minato used to trap Shikaku went missing after Naruto left the gates, as Naruto did a quick detour to the island, leaving Shikaku, as he then went to the hidden rain. Meanwhile, Zetsu was confident when he walked into the rain, the Akatsuki base in the rain, he would know that Konan and Pain would be dead for poking the tiger, something that he needed to happen until he waked the lion to bring the tiger down. As for the rest of the Akatsuki, they were not important now. The only thing that mattered was returning to the room that held the husk of the Jobi, as Zetsu had a large scroll strapped on his back, with 6 and 7 stripes. As Zetsu then heard voices, as he quickly sped up and walked towards the room that held the Jobi husk, that had all of the tail beast chakra in it, well, small portion of all of their chakra. The moment he entered the room, he had to duck as a paper shuriken nearly tear right through his skull, as he saw Konan walk out of the shadows, as he was beyond shock. "Zetsu," she said, "what a pleasure to see you here." "Ah, Konan-sama, the invasion was a success then," said Zetsu, as he was cowering inside. How the hell could she be alive? She should be dead. Naruto should have destroyed the both of them for attempting to destroy Konoha. Perhaps he wasn't there? That could be a possibility. Or perhaps his pain was strong enough to take down Naruto. No, that couldn't be possible. No, Konan said, breaking from his thoughts. It was a complete failure. Ah, so Pain was dead. That means Konan barely escaped. I am sorry to hear that, Konan-sama. My condolences. Regarding Pain-sama, he was a great leader, Zetsu said. Luckily, I still managed to retrieve these, he said, as he motioned to the 2 large scrolls on his back. As a part of our deal with the Stone Village, along with a sample of the Ichibai, once I place these 2 in their rightful place, you can inform me about the details. Pain isn't dead, Zetsu said Konan, as Zetsu started to worry even more. But did you not say that the invasion was a failure? If he wasn't dead, that means him and Pain talk. Naruto and Pain talk. As Zetsu started to freak out, if Naruto ever knew that he was a... As he looked at Konan as she spoke. We had a rather interesting conversation with the elemental sage. He answered a few questions about the plan. You would believe that man? Said Zetsu. As Konan moved forward, as Zetsu realized he wouldn't be convincing her of anything. For what reason would he try to turn us against each other when he could simply crush us under his heel, Konan said. Immediately, Zetsu thrust his arm forward as wood spikes break from the ground and rush towards Konan. Meanwhile, with Naruto, he saw the explosion in the distance as he knew that that involved Konan. Still, several miles away from the hidden rain as he wanted to arrive at lunchtime. But that changed quickly as he activates Swift Release. As Naruto arrived within seconds. When Naruto arrived, his eyes went wide as he saw the statue that Hagoromo sent up in space that he never thought he would see again. Worse was the multiple streams of chakra going into the statue as the eyes were slowly opening as he then looked for his daughter as he sensed her chakra as he jumped down into the crater as he moved away the stone as he saw a cocoon made from paper as he moved it as Konan tensed up inside as her paper was being forcefully removed as she saw her father looking down at her as she had cuts and bruises on her body. You tried to confront Zetsu, didn't you? Naruto said. You should have let me take care of him. I don't need you to fight my battles, Konan said. Akatsuki's goal was to bring peace to this world. Zetsu was against that goal, so it was my duty to remove him. Do you see what is around us? Naruto said, as he motioned as the multiple chakras that were traveling into the statue. As Conan narrowed her eyes in kind of fear. How was this possible? I destroyed the scrolls, the room, everything. I had enough explosive notes to destroy a civilian village, Conan said. You cannot destroy chakra so easily, Conan. All you have done is make it more difficult for the Jubi to gather the chakra that it needs. So instead of being spoon-fed, it must gain its chakra but Naruto was cut off. So stop it, said Conan. Stop it from feeding, she said. If that was so simple, I would have done it already. The amount of chakra here is nothing compared to the Jubi's full power. It's like a drop in the ocean. Once it already get piece of all the Nine Tails chakra, it started own regeneration, gathering its chakra by itself. Then what do we do? Asked Conan. Just wait? I will ready myself, Naruto said, while you return to your village and prepare however you can. As Naruto cut her off before she could say anything, you would be a liability if you stay here. If I had to keep my eye on you, it would be a hindrance to my ability to combat whatever is coming. As the statues start to move, all 9 eyes looking at them. Conan, Naruto said in a demanding tone, seeing that the Jubi was almost complete. Leave now! As she created paper wings and flew up into the air, as Naruto watched her leave, before turning back to the beast. He was going to end this. There wouldn't be another ceiling. He would kill this beast. As the Jubi started to grow, as the statue pushed off the ground, standing on 2 legs, but all eyes were looking at Naruto. Then it started to dissolve, as the body started to float off into the wind. As Naruto was confused, what was it doing? Was it splitting itself into a copy of itself, like Shinobi's did? As Naruto could feel the chakra of the beast was gathering at the stomach. As Naruto's eyes went wide, this could be some metamorphosis. It must be changing shape or something. It would add to the challenge of Naruto putting it down, if he didn't know the capacity of this new body. As Naruto saw 2 horns stretch downwards as they curved to each other, as he managed to make out a white top that the 2 horns connected to. Then the white top became here, and pale skin was visible. A slit on the forehead became visible, and by that time Naruto's eyes widened, as he realized what he was witnessing. The rest of the Jubi body dissolved, but Naruto's eyes were still locked on the figure floating in mid-air. Familiar white eyes stared into Naruto's own, as they could see right through his illusion. She was just as Naruto remembered from his childhood, with her long, sweeping hair and high-collar kimono. The only difference was on her forehead, where the slit had opened up to reveal the eye of the Jubi, instead of the Sharingan or the Rinnegan. As her eyes hold none of the rage or anger, nothing. She just had a calm look on her face. As time restarted, as the form of his mother spoke, Naruto-kun, she said kindly. As there wasn't any hatred or malice. Nothing there, just kindness. It was the same look that he got from her when he was much younger, when she was lovely and kind, before she became the monster hungry of chakra, before he had to take her life. But the eye, that eye, this wasn't his mother. This thing was just wearing her appearance. As she descended and came to the ground, as she was just a few inches away from Naruto, as she raised her hand and tried to put it on his cheek, but Naruto stepped back. He didn't know how this was happening. He was going to let someone wearing the face of Kaguya Osusuke touch him. A flash of annoyance crossed her face before she dropped her hand as it was replaced by one of amusement. You don't still think that we're fighting, do you, Naruto-kun? She said. Who are you? Naruto said, as she shook her head, still amused. Naruto-kun, it's your mom, she said. The day you supposedly killed me, I was in the middle of restoring her family to what it was. I was going to end the fight that split us apart and return us to what we were before, the family that loved each other. How is this possible, Naruto thought? How did it get this information? The 10 Tails couldn't have gotten that information. What is going on? You told me to leave when I first got there, Naruto said. When I questioned to what you were doing, you then became angry and then attacked. As Naruto tried to fish out some information, I was unstable at that point, Naruto, she said. It was an incredible risky thing I was doing, and your interference could have ruined it. And what exactly were you doing, Naruto said, as he tensed his body, knowing that there could be an attack any time now. I was... An annoyed look then came on her face. Get rid of that mask. I want to talk to my son, she said. As Naruto did so, wanting this person to keep talking, as he removed the illusion, showing his white eye and his white hair. As she still had the annoyed look on her face. As Naruto then showed his horns. Good, she said. I was in the middle of transporting my chakra into the huts of the Jobe. Naruto frowned at that. The pieces were coming together, but that still didn't explain what he was talking to. What did that accomplish? What good did it do, Naruto asked. As she sighed, Naruto, you're still so impatient when you cannot see the answer. Because my chakra was so similar to the Jobe, with some effort, I was able to make it my own. It was a near thing, she said. When you destroyed my physical body, I hadn't yet taken full control, but I managed to do it in the end. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough chakra to reform my body until now. I am truly thankful that someone was able to join with me, long enough for me to be able to manifest my will once more. But it was a pity their chakra wasn't enough to properly be utilized. Your will? Said Naruto. Zetsu, she said, as a black substance started to leak from the rocks around him, as it formed up into the air, coming together. As Naruto narrowed his eyes, how is this possible? He had killed this thing when he took care of his mother back then. As he started to see the entire picture now, this thing that claimed to be his mother was a very detailed copy. It had her memory, it had her personality, but it didn't have her soul. His mother's soul already moved on to the Pure Lands. And what he was currently looking at was a possibility of what his mother could have become. In that moment, Naruto was incredibly grateful that he ended his mother's life before she could have become this. The chakra of his mother combined with the remnants of the Jobe, a horrible echo of the woman that had raised him. Zetsu was grateful in my return. Weren't you, my son? She said. Mom, Zetsu said, as he kept his eyes on Naruto. He does not follow your vision. He would stop us. He doesn't matter now, said Kaguya. Naruto could not do anything even if he wanted to. It is too late for that. And why would you say that? Said Naruto. I defeated the Jobe once before. I can do it again. A smile came on her face. You truly don't know what I have become, do you, Naruto? The thing that you faced with Hakuromo was indeed a god, powerful, but it had little experience on using that power. But now, I am that god. I am that god, she said as she spread her arms. And I will take back what is mine. As she released a wave of power. But Naruto stood his guard, as he then felt a burning sensation on his wrist as he looked down. As a symbol, a kanji for 8 appeared. It then turned red and then turned black. The host of the 8th hill was dead. As Naruto understood what she was doing now, she was not absorbing the people of the world chakra. She was absorbing the tail beast chakra that was so similar to Owen's, seeing that the tail beasts were made up from the Jobe. But guys, let me end this episode right here. If you want to see the next part of it, so you already know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn that bell notifications they posted. Remember, share to all of your friends on your social media platform. And also stay in tune, because after this, I'm going to be posting a brand new episode of What If Naruto Returned Different After His Training Trip. And after that, I'm going to be posting What If Naruto Was Neglected by Everyone. And over on Anime King 2, I'm going to be posting What If the 10 Tails was sealed inside Naruto. So stay in tune for that, and I hope you guys enjoy. And later on, I'm going to be posting What If Izuna Uchiha was Naruto's ancestor. So stay in tune for that as well, guys, and I hope you enjoy. And remember, if you're new, to go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become a part of the Anime King family, guys. And yeah, without further ado, I'm out for now. See you guys soon. Peace.